Okay, welcome everybody on Zoom and Facebook and watching wherever you are in the world. We are here celebrating our first Zoom celebration of arriving at a Shoreline. And joining us today are a couple of editors, three editors, excuse me. There's Jane Ormerod, who's going to wave at you, David Lawton, Lindsay Ellis, not here today with us, but thought of fondly are Thomas Fucaloro and George Wallace, as well as the always loved and appreciated Peter Darrow. I'm Mary Slechta, and as I said, this is our first event on Zoom, but we did have a wonderful one in New York City a few weeks back, hosted by David. We had a wonderful time, and we enjoyed those contributors. I'm sure we're going to enjoy you just as much today. I wanted to say just some brief words about this. We have 9 readers today, so I won't take up a lot of time. And 4 of you are fiction writers, which is really exciting. We have 5 poets and 4 fiction writers, although a lot of you, of course, write in both genres. But I wanted to say that we never proposed a theme for our anthology, but this one sort of came out very organically. And it seems like it's come out of our whole shared experience of coming out of COVID and coming out of all the worry and anxiety that we've been feeling. So we found a lot of hope in these poems and these stories. A lot of hope, a lot of sense of moving forward into the future, but a lot of sense that we're all kind of sketching things out. You know, we're feeling hopeful, but we're not quite sure where we're at and where we're going next. But we want to thank everyone here today and everyone who contributed to the journal for participating in that artistic journey that we went on too as we looked at your work. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I just want to get to the amazing readers we have today. As I said, we have 4 short fiction pieces and lots of poetry. And our very first reader is going to be Aimee Wright Clow. Aimee. You know, you talk about nervousness. I have come out of COVID too with my tongue in trouble. Aimee, I'm so sorry. Aimee Wright Clow is a writer and book designer living in Durham, North Carolina. Their writing and video poems have appeared or are forthcoming in journals including Hayden's Fairy Review, Tribes Magazine, Interim, the Bennington Review, and Puerto del Sol. Aimee's book arts project, A Brief Map of Albany, is available from Utilities Included. Welcome, Aimee.
Thank you, Mary. And thank you also to Jane, Thomas, David, George, Peter, and Lindsay for putting together this reading and this very beautiful anthology. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I also want to thank Richard, Violeta, Aimee, Roger, Sarah, Lil, Yvonne, and Tobey. I've loved encountering your work and arriving at a Shoreline, and I'm looking forward to listening to you all today. We're just getting over 2 weeks of colds in my house, so I apologize if my voice is a little bit scratchy. But can you all hear me okay? Okay. All right. I'm going to open with my poem story that's in the anthology, and then I'll read a few more that are similar to this piece, meaning that they all come from COVID, are a little apocalyptic, and largely inspired by staring at my backyard. The Tenured are eating sandwiches on the deck, talking about weather. I prop up on a sill and lean my head against glass, fall asleep to their discussion. When I wake up, I find them also pressed against glass, also sleeping. Were they listening? I wonder what I said in my sleep. I walk into the yard where I watch them snore under a noon sun. I eat both of their sandwiches. Chewing, I contemplate the woods behind the yard. Taken at a distance, a tree is merely solid wood, smooth, cylindrical. But step closer, the trunk's ridges branch and part, and from ridge blossoms branch, blossoms petal and leaves. Or bend, and to root your hand must slip, detritus, worm, and silt wet. When the tenured wake, they find their necks stiff. They stand and stretch and contemplate the westering clouds. The class they're waiting for has yet to arrive. Their sandwiches are gone. Emptiness sparks a feeling in them. They resume their talk of weather, how warm it is when they've expected sleet. They unwrap their scarves. If you close your eyes and let your body sink underground, you will find vast networks of what you can cling to. I cling to roots and climb like a ladder until I find myself under voices speaking of weather. Press my ears to the mud just hard enough. I press my face to the dirt and sleep. Okay, and then a few non-anthology poems. Selling pixelated soy to foreign markets. It is easier to walk into a computer than into a yard. Wind breaks a tree, but the composition rests outside behind thick glass. On screen, I play a game of farm with field and sheep. What's the quaint dream we vote to preserve? Someone brings the shut-ins pallets of brown avocados. Fruit falls off skin with only fingers. Thin dotted lassos slip off the cattle, a ruffle of bruised green. To crawl into the trash is to become trash. To crawl into the stream is to propagate water, cells like oceans. The pixelated pig is kiss-lip pink, and the farmer is a vibrant flash of meat. It is easier to step to the side than forward. A tornado takes form like a chimney in smoke. Let me in, the old wolf blows. Count time by a thread of orange reflections. Straw into brick, into metal like crystals. Pig into man and hooves into hands. A loved one said he wanted a life more than comfort. I find that hard to fathom. Electricity flickers and then it shuts off. A squirrel is thrown from trunk against the length of the yard. Clouds puff and gray, green. There's a lot he cannot see. Afterwinds. A boorish green buzzard lands on a flower and the stalk holds up. It's true there are no green raptors, and sunny limbs break under any weight. Just outside my window, 4 have cracked, bending into grass. Still they blossom. And I see light where it isn't, name colors things like birds. I wonder what a buzzard songs. I wonder what seeds eat under mud, how much mass before they break. I make a plate of dead things to offer to the yard, whatever lives can eat. It's true the storm never really landed. I fill a bowl with water to cleanse their palates. It's true we got the best of it here. I clean up sticks to compost, reassemble broken furniture. The buzzard leaves its perch to find my offerings. Its green feathers trail a cloudy gust, specks of bloom, metallic and clear, like dust the windows shattered, reflecting particles of sun in a halo around as it douses its head in the drinking bowl. And this will be my last poem. It's called Forecast. All greens cut, the stump swells and I swell, and I sit on the stump under to the brim-filled clouds, and I think, I wonder who sees what else swells, what I want to do this day, week, month. The humid nothing morning, I sweat on the stump. Water leaves my skin for the field, so fruit swells, so I sell. I read a book on the stump by my sign, by the fruit, by the side of the road I sell, and I ask the character if her life is more than work and home, or who she's watching through the window go to work, home. Invited to the gallery of stumps down the road, I go and am awed by the left above greens I can't sit between. I decline wine and am offered water from the ditch by the fields. I drink so I swell, so this is what it's all about. I leave the party to walk all night. Come morning without fruit, I wander home. My home is branches of leaves. Move the leaves aside to find a breeze. I invite a neighbor to the water ditch. She rubs my feet. So I tell her what I used to think, who I used to be, say, now in my head, this throb and aching. But she says, you speak, that's a thinking too. And tomorrow will come storms. There's purpose more than selling. At home, we begin digging. Someone joins us with rocks to frame walls. We drink water on the edge of our entrance, lean back to look at a sky, orange, pink, and all horizons. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aimee. That was wonderful. Your line in your first poem still resonating in my head. It is easier to walk into a computer than into a yard. That's wonderful. I love your imagery there, and throughout. All right, our next reader is going to be Richard Loranger. Richard is a multi-genre writer, performer, musician, visual artist, and all-around squeaky wheel. He's currently residing in Oakland, California. He is the founder of Poet Tea, a monthly literary conversation group. His newest book, Unit of Agency, which he describes as a collection of his human struggle, protest culture, social justice, pissed off lefty poems, is out from Collapse Press. He's also the author of Be About It, which I love, Sudden Windows, The Orange Book, Poems for Teeth, and 10 chapbooks, and has a work in over 100 magazines and journals. Welcome, Richard.
Hey, I think I need to shorten that.
No.
Yeah, it's too much. I want to thank all you guys, the Great Weather folks, Jane and Mary, Lindsay, David, Peter, and everybody for continuing to like my work after several years and putting up with me. And nice to see everybody here. I'm just going to read the piece I have in this. It's like the most beautiful cover ever in history, I just want to say, and that's all. It's a piece of flash. It's a piece of flash. It's called Shed. About a week ago, I woke to find feathers scattered here and there in my apartment. They were of light gray and brown coloring, not very big, certainly not from a tiny creature. Bemused, I went about picking them up and realized there were more than I'd first noticed. Grabbed the vacuum, hoping they wouldn't clog it. They didn't, but they did clog my attention for a while, wondering where the hell they came from. It seemed as if a bird had gotten in, but search as I might, there was no sign of anything more than feathers. Eventually, I went off to work and forgot all about it. Next morning, I found a few more, and I was sure they weren't there the night before. This time I went tearing through the closets, checking under furniture. The last thing I needed was to have a dead bird somewhere in the apartment. I found nothing. A couple of days later, I got home from work and noticed clumps of matted gray hair or fur in most of the rooms, even on the kitchen table, especially in the bed. Suspect number one, the downstairs neighbor's nasty old long hair, which had gotten into my place a few times before. Even so, after the feathers, it felt a little weird. I thrashed around all the rooms. I couldn't spy it or scare it out from anywhere. Then I realized I'd left the door ajar and it must have gotten back out. I went down and pounded on the old guy's door. No response, not even that vexatious feline growling as usual. It was probably on the roof by then anyway. The following morning, I spotted even more of the gross, mangy stuff. I repeated the search and pound of the night before with a dash of rage. No cat, no answer, definitely no joy. Was relieved to arrive home that evening to no further clumps or evidence of intrusion. And although I suspected the invasion wasn't over, I decided to let it go as much as I can let anything go. Besides, I was beat and didn't want to spend another second on it. A couple days later, that being yesterday morning, I woke to find my bed full of scales. No shit, like snake scales, I guess, but bigger than I'd imagined them. Now I was officially creeped out. Clearly, somebody was fucking with me, probably one of my psycho exes. The question being which one? Not I have a type. I wasn't sure if the scales were real, never did hang out much with snakes, but they definitely had a sharp odor. Not unpleasant, just sharp, kind of acrid. Not that it mattered. Someone was sneaking into my apartment while I was sleeping or not home and tossing animal shits all over the place. Sloths molting. How sick was that? First thing, I texted my building manager to come take a look. He wrote back to say he was out of town a few days, figures. No vacuum for these babies, though. I picked them up one by one, gingerly at first. They were cool and smooth, but not slimy. I thought they'd be slimy. Collected them in a big Ziploc bag, which I laid carefully on the far side of the kitchen table. Dozens of them, maybe 100 or more. Psycho. I was pretty aggro and debated staying home from work, considering what antics might happen here during the day, especially with no one around to check. Then I thought the better of it, figuring it couldn't get much worse than this. And if it did, there'd be hell to pay. Be good to take my mind off it anyway. Arrived home, apprehensive as hell, and crept quietly to my door. There was no sound within, no sign of anyone having entered. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. I burst in like a bad TV cop actor yelling, "Police!" to my empty, musty place. All right, maybe I was overreacting, but I couldn't settle down. Eventually ended up having a couple of drinks while staring at some bland human drama on the screen. Took one of my favorite little chill pills that knocked my ass out. Don't ask which one, I've got them all. Hit the sack. I slept badly last night regardless, tossing, writhing in sweaty sheets for hours without ever being conscious enough to wake up fully and start over. Finally, I slid into a blackness with no sound, no dream, still as a cavern. I woke this morning feeling oddly untroubled, almost serene, as if I'd put a great ordeal behind me. I'd forgotten to set the alarm, didn't care, lying there incredibly relaxed with eyes closed luxuriously against the day. In my half sleep, I imagined I was lying with a lover, could even feel the light weight of their hand on my chest. As I woke further, I realized that couldn't be. Decided I must be snuggling with my sheets still tangled from the night. My eyes finally fluttered open on their own, and I saw that that wasn't the case either. Here's the strangest part. You'd think I'd have been freaked or frightened to find myself lying side by side with a shed of my entire skin. But I wasn't. Instead, it felt so familiar, soft, almost silken, shrouded in a comforting musk. Though it was light as can be, I felt a great weight lifted. The shed looked to be complete, intact, with only the mouth gaping as if ready to kiss. I let out a deep breath and lay there feeling whole for the first time in memory, calm and content as ever. I snuggled in against it, letting my eyes close again. And for the longest time, I lay there breathing in the musk, cheek to cheek with my inverted face. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Richard. That was great. Am I still muted? I had to pull up my anthology and read along that last paragraph with you. Amazing story. Spooky. Thank you.
It's a true story, actually.
Oh dear. Oh, I assumed it was, right? And you're not running? You're still with us? You're not running away? All right. Okay, our third reader today is Violeta Orozco. Violeta is the author of 3 poetry collections, Stillness in the Land of Speed by Jakar Press, which is forthcoming, The Broken Woman Diaries, Andante Books 2022, and El Cuarto de la Luna, Proyecto Literal 2020. She was the winner of the 2021 New Voices Poetry Award, judged by Jackie Shelton Green. Congratulations. Violeta lives in Cincinnati, where she is currently pursuing her PhD focused on creative writing, Latinx literature, and translation. Her poems have been published in Acentos Review, Tribes, Chicana Latina Journal, Palabritas, Cloud Women's Quarterly Journal, and elsewhere. She is also a literary translator with a monthly column and Nueva York Poetry Review. Welcome, Violeta.
Thanks, Mary. I'm super happy to be here. Thanks to all the editors. I love the volume. Look at how many others. And also thanking Tom, because Tom has been really following my work. And I love the title too, because I'm gonna read poems about shorelines. So if anybody remembers the page, you guys will save me like 20 seconds because I had it right here, but I didn't bookmark it. So give me just 1 second to find it.
38, Violeta.
Oh, wow, you got it, Mary. Thank you. So the first poem I will read from the anthology is Seashell Harvest. You turn them around to see their perfectly creased backs, your shirt bulging with seashells, cowries, conchs, cockles, sea urchin domes whitened by the glaring sand. You like how they're picked clean, only the skeleton remains. Your hands run up and down the cracks, carved by stones and waves, bashing them into each other. Who were these, you wonder? Who will record their roughened textures and ruptured skeletons lying exposed upon the shore? Someone has to piece the story together, restore the battered bones of the earth, the soft flesh of mollusks and crabs. In the sun, you are a black silhouette, a farmer harvesting at dusk, bending down to pick crops of a washed out day. A wavering figure, sifting through sand fields in search of talismans and treasures among the harvest of the seas. And the next piece, thank you, is from my poetry collection, The Broken Woman Diaries. Here it is, the cover so you can see it. We recently won an award, so I'm gonna read 2 poems from that collection. Fade out. We dipped into each other, made of the same impermeable material, burning water fusing into sand. I don't remember them all. When did I begin to crave only one body? I, who had believed in the pagan myths of multiple deities, who had only loved fleeting glimpses of beauty I could always touch but never hold. Poseidon, Shak, Tlaloc, any water god, I began to pull him toward me like the moon, slowly pulling at the distant earth. Until waves sprang out of the surface, we drowned inside ourselves, holding our breaths, giggling and tossing full speed into the violent shore, our skin covered in sand and weed and salt, licking ourselves clean to plunge back at every tide into a dizzying whirlwind of water. Black, blue, bright, blue, deep and dark and deafening. We gobbled up each other. Earth crashed into the moon, shattered her into a million drops. To know I live on an island now, surrounded by a violent ocean on all sides of my skin. I don't go near the mainland. No, I have changed. I regard the waves as harbingers of wrecks and dead fish or men. They appear in the morning, unremembered members of a body I can no longer identify. And the second one, thank you, is called The Lake House, dedicated to a lake. We slithered into the sheets, two snakes shedding their unfamiliar skins, volcanic ash next to the road. He said we should see the evening encroach upon the city. I crawled into the ash pile, a mermaid of the earth, diving into a different kind of water, a well of sounds and echoes. We tossed and turned, wrestled in the bed of ash, buried each other, strange dances of curling, craving tendrils, reached into the other dimension of the bed. My body screamed out a jungle of electric wires. Everything was silent in the sleepy night. My senses hollered out, light streamed into their sudden veins. I could no longer deny, refuse the moon, lighting up my body from the inside, strange rivers rising from within. The current sweeps me into the lake inside us, seeps through the cracks, floods the room, bursting and swelling. Climbs the high walls, rising higher and higher. We split our insides open, become the outer walls of the full circle. The wood splintered into an ocean. Panic, panic, panic. Numbing up the shade, streets made of limestone. Liquid bones gushed forth. Nothing was solid or straight, dissolved as heat touched me. A mirror image, guessing his own moves. Terrified of the body you can no longer control, you roll on through the eons, automated movement, a puppet of an unknown impulse, thousands of magnets haywire in your pulverized surface. The compass jumps up and down in different directions. What is presence? You ask an aimless shape. What is the immaterial force we call a body? Your body is a question mark. A mere footprint on the shore of an alien ocean. Thank you.
I was clapping so long, I forgot that I'm hosting. That was wonderful, Violeta. You got me wrapped up in that. It was gorgeous. Thank you. All right, we're going to turn back to fiction in a moment. We have on page 136, I know the fiction is sometimes a little longer to follow. You might want to follow along. Aimee Dennis is going to read to us. I love your bio, Dennis.
Okay.
Aimee Dennis contains multitudes. He grew up on the same street that was once home to jazz legend John Coltrane. He was expelled from PS 36 for ignoring the third grade teacher's repeated warnings to stop trading baseball cards during class. Graduated from St. John's University, journalism BS, an overweight, starving artist. Work featured by Newtown Literary, Press 53, Escape Wheel from Great Weather for Media, and many others. Chapbook, Mistaken Identity Crisis, published by NYSAI Press in 2020. Dennis resides in Staten Island, New York, with his pet rock, Gibraltar. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Mary. I hope I have enough time to get the complete story in, but if I do run out, the good thing will be you will have to go to Great Weather for Media's website and purchase it from the online store so that you can get the ending. I may just, fair warning, I may just actually stop right before the end so that you have to go and buy the book to get the ending. Sand as a boundary for sea. And to think they call it an act of God. No, if anything, this was an act of Satan. That's why my heart goes out to Satan's wife. According to an old wives' tale, The devil's beating her whenever there's a spell of heavy rain and smacks of thunder. So imagine the level of domestic violence that happened in hell during this. Hell, folks, not even referring to it as a hurricane anymore. They're now calling it Superstorm Sandy. There's masses of displaced persons huddled in this repurposed gymnasium. First responders have no time for proper introduction. Someone in a position of authority wearing an FBI-style windbreaker that reads SS worker gives you a numbered paper ticket, the kind used for waiting in line at the deli counter to buy Wonder Bar bologna for $2.99 a pound. And then you're pointed to the nearest available cot. That's where you're supposed to stay and not move from until the registration desk calls your number. What seems to be the problem, miss? Why did you move from your cot? The SS worker asked me. My Jewish ancestry wouldn't let me stay put. I'll have you know, I start off, because I sometimes start off that way when I'm about to tell somebody off. I have less than 6 degrees of separation from Lenny Kravitz, and I'm even less separated than that from Tony Curtis, and I'm beyond offended by your attire. I reach inside my blouse, pull out my Star David pendant, and continue. I'm surrounded by World War II Germany? SS worker? Whoever designed these windbreakers, I want to file a complaint against that Meshuggah. Nah, no, he didn't. Did he interrupt one of the rare moments when I get to use the little Yiddish I know in an actual real life situation? So rude. Yet, I listened to his interruption without interrupting because he's in a position of authority. Miss, people really require my assistance right now. Getting registered, filing incident reports, standing here listening to you complain about the double S on my windbreaker instead of me going to help those in need. I truly don't have time for it. Well, you truly need to make time, I shoot back. How dare he try to turn the tables like Jesus did to the moneylenders in the temple, running that condescending guilt trip on me. Okay, miss, I got time today. Time to read you quicker than the book of John, chapter 11, verse 35. 1, I know it's in smaller print than the initials, but even the short-sighted can see from a distance. Every worker's windbreaker has Superstorm Sandy written next to the double S. 2, I'll give you Lenny, because at least there is some Jewishness in his name, but I don't think you know what you're talking about when it comes to Tony Curtis. That name sounds super Gentile to me. 3, I'm done here. Go take your tuchus back to bed number 2 and wait for your ticket to be called. Son of a bitch. No, he didn't. Did he use Yiddish on me? I hate when you have a great comeback. No, 2 great comebacks, but they come to you too late. What could have been me replying, you can take one of those registration desk Sharpies and graffiti Bernard Herschel Schwartz across my tuchus if Tony Curtis isn't Jewish. Or what should have been me replying, I'll have you know it's a cot, not a bed. Turns into me standing there looking like a schmuck. I feel the way you feel when you hold out your hand for several seconds, but the other person never sees or shakes it. Before my opportunity to retaliate with wit and sarcasm presents itself, the Superstorm Sandy worker abruptly turns from me and runs away. There was a stabbing, possibly fatal, on the other side of the gym, in a dispute over the only available electrical outlet. And the most shocking part, the incident involved 2 brothers. Younger brother stabbed older brother because he felt lowest battery percentage, not highest age, should determine who charges their phone first. Witnesses recall younger brother yelling, "Shotgun!" and the older sibling refusing to honor his claim on the grounds that it exclusively applies to the front seat of a car. The older brother, who had 50% battery remaining, plugged his Android into the wall first. And that's when the younger brother stabbed him, just as his iPhone, which had 1% power left, began dying. It's not an ideal impetus for gratitude, yet nonetheless, I feel grateful for being stabbed wound-free. While sitting on bed number 2 cot, a grown-up version of the kind used in kindergarten for nap time, new perspective is gained. The whole windbreaker thing is bupkis, and I changed my mind about filing the complaint. At that exact moment, bed number 2, report to registration desk. A megaphone wielding lady gives me a stack of forms heftier than War and Peace. After completing them, providing my autobiography and signing away my firstborn, the megaphone wielding lady's Sharpie wielding assistant gives me one of those "Hello, my name is" stickers. Part of me doesn't want to make a molehill mountainous due to my sticker not having the right name. Another part of me wants to return to the registration desk and ask for a new one because names are important. I turn around to go back. At that exact moment, two paramedics cross my path, wheeling a stretcher with a squeaky rear wheel. Their pace is almost pedestrian. No need to rush. Like it's not a life or death situation, just a death situation. I stare at the black body bag, a section of it poking up like a macabre camping tent pole caused by the hilt of a knife. I change my mind about changing my name sticker. Oh Lord, please don't let me survive a Category 3 act of God disaster only to die in a man-made makeshift facility. I need to charge my phone too. Less than 50% battery left, but I'd rather a dead phone than the dead me. Looking at my name sticker, inhaling the faint toxicity of Sharpie after smell, I'm reminded why I use a first name that's different from the one on my birth certificate. Miss Olson, my kindergarten teacher, said my parents, quote, lacked the competence to properly name a daughter, end quote, and accused them of cursing me to be, quote, a bearer of bad news, end quote. Ever since then, I've gone by Sandra instead of Cassandra. Hi, Cassandra. I'm Brother Hector. Would it be okay if I talk with you about eternal salvation? This is the problem with wearing a name tag. Everyone can see what your name is according to the registration desk. I'm not in the mood for Brother Hector, wielding a stack of compact-sized Bibles, attempting to save my soul in the middle of a first world refugee camp for victims of Superstorm Sandy. But I don't want to be rude, so I listen without interrupting, because he tells me God spoke to me and said to come speak to you. That must mean he's in a position of authority. Tomorrow might be too late, Brother Hector says, a rebuttal to my needing time to think about being born again. I was a breech baby, but first. Day one, I'm already telling the world, kiss my ass, and almost died by umbilical cord strangulation. Not sure I want to go through the ordeal of being born again. Brother Hector won't accept indecision for an answer, and therefore resorts to fear tactics. Jesus will come like a thief in the night, he warns. And if you're not saved, you'll burn in hell for all eternity. I could debate with Brother Hector, but I don't. It's better to take the free compact Bible he offers and let him move on to bed number 3's cot. Think about it. How hot can hell really be if it takes all eternity for something to burn? My oldest sister, Dee, died in an automobile accident. After being run off the highway, her Trans Am hit a concrete divider, caught fire, and exploded. She burned to death. My poor parents, they would have preferred to give Dee a traditional burial. Unfortunately, she was already cremated. So I'm not afraid of burning in the afterlife. I'm afraid of burning in this life, trapped in a vehicle, roasting like a friggin' $5 Costco rotisserie chicken. And I'm not afraid of Jesus coming like a thief in the night. I'm afraid of the opportunistic thieves in this gymnasium, seeking to alchemize tragedy into money. And they're the reason I have my identification, cash, credit cards, and cell phone hidden inside my panties. When the woman in bed number 3's cot, who doesn't have a name tag yet, sees me doze off, utterly exhausted, clutching my purse, she wakes me up and stresses the importance of not getting caught sleeping. Girl, stay woke, she says. And if you can't, you best sleep with one eye open. When the conversation turns to all the people who filed incident reports with a Superstorm Sandy worker regarding stolen property, bed number 3 tells me that most were robbed while asleep. Immediately, I take my valuables out of my purse and transfer them to the safety deposit box known as my brassiere. Girl, that ain't gonna cut it. Bed number 3 expresses security concerns over the new location. Bed number 3 calls for a desperate measure, motions her pointer finger, starts from her bra, then points downward to her crotch, then points straight at me. Through this impromptu game of charades, she informs me that the safest hiding spot isn't inside my bra. You want your valuables to be safe? Bed number 3 says. You best put them inside your... No, thank you, I interrupt. I'm not smuggling contraband into prison. Nothing is being put there. Up inside my underwear is close enough. I close my eyes because bed number 3 promises to watch my back. I drift back in time. What the f... I'm a deep sleeper, but I don't sleep that deep. I ignore it at first. Tell myself, maybe it's the bed number 2 bugs biting. I longed for more time in dream world, but the real world beckons. Wake up, sleepyhead. Get up. Come back and see why your single person cot is on the verge of double occupancy. I jump out my sleep. My shut eyes open wide to reality. A B&E in progress. Somebody is breaking and entering the waistband threshold of my panties. Apollonia? The woman formerly known as bed number 3 is almost in the cot with me. If her hand goes any farther, of all the valuables inside my panties, she'll be touching the most valuable one. I'm sorry, that's a lot more than a mix-up, I say to Apollonia, who tries to talk me out of filing an incident report. I only intended to use your phone, I swear. My sister Vanity, I haven't heard from her, Apollonia says. You were in a nice deep sleep, snoring, slobbering on your forearm so peacefully, I didn't want to wake you up. I give her a look. She probably thinks, you think I'm lying. Honestly, I was thinking, Vanity, what would Miss Olson say about whoever named her that? This is the story of her intentions Apollonia sticks to. She'd gone into my panties without waking me up to get my phone, to call her sister Vanity to find out if she was safe, then return my phone to my panties without waking me up. No wakey, no foul, she says. I appreciate the explanation, but still feel violated. Boundaries. For Apollonia's hand and the secret inside my Victorias, never shall the twain meet. I'm upset. It's always the ones in the cot closest to you. But as upset as I am over the whole hand in my panties without permission, what upsets me even more is seeing Apollonia's name tag. A name tag means going to the registration desk. Going to the registration desk means a broken promise to watch my back. A broken promise means she left me in a deep sleep, unsupervised and vulnerable. After calming down, I changed my mind about filing an incident report. There's no way I'm going back to sleep, though. I opened Brother Hector's Bible. No disrespect to the Bible Belt or those who believe it's a good book, but the Bible is something I read when there's nothing else to read, like a waiting room's outdated magazine. When you're not a Bible reader and you go to read the Bible, where do you start? In the beginning? I think back to the SS worker, how he read me filthy, which prompts me to start at Book of John, chapter 11, verse 35. After reading that scripture, I weep. I feel as close to Jesus as a non-Christian Gentile with Jewish ancestry can feel. I weep for all the devastation and loss, everything snatched away by that superstorm bitch Sandy. My rescue cat is missing. I'm worried that he's on his last life. That bitch took my security, my dignity, displaced me. Bitch broke my heart. I can't stop weeping. My tears make the thin Bible pages resemble wet toilet tissue. I randomly flip to another part of the Bible. Doesn't matter where, just wanting to land any place dry. And I'm going to stop there. There's one more dramatic ending paragraph after that. And if you purchase the book at Great Weather for Media's online bookstore, you'll find out what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. That was great. And thank you for the shout out for buying this book. The perfect place to stop. And if you haven't read it yet, you really have to read that. And I love when you read that one line you said. How hot can eternity be? How hot can hell be if it takes all eternity to burn something? So I'm going to keep that in mind next time I mess up. You know, I'm not gonna worry about it anymore. So a few announcements. A little commercial break. There is no spoken word Sundays tomorrow at the Parkside Lounge in New York City, but the following Sunday, September 23rd from 4 to 6, come celebrate National Translation Month with Sudabeth Saidnia and Adriana Scopino. Did I say that okay, David? Okay, I'm screwing up everybody's name. My name's Slechta, so I'm used to it. Every Wednesday, join us for a 10-minute Zoom reading at 7:30 Eastern Time, hosted by Thomas Bucaloro. This week, on 9/21, we feature Matthew Gilbert. That should be great. You're laughing at me. All right, and our next launch celebration is, I think, October 8th. Is that right? Shake your head. It's hosted by Lindsay Ellis. Lindsay, are you there? Yes. October 8th, is that right? No.
I think it's, yeah, it's the one afterwards.
The one after.
It's not the 8th. It's the following Saturday. 15.
Well, 8 and 7. 8 and 7. Somebody out there has to do the math for us. Okay, thank you very much. I think that would be the 15th. All right. After a little comic relief, and I have enjoyed the first half so much. So thank you very much, everybody. Take a nice deep breath, and we are going to start up again with Sarah. Sarah Azzara is a writer, songwriter, and visual artist whose work has been published in journals such as the Southampton Review, Santa Ana River Review, and American Literary Review. Her awards and honors include appearing in the Dramatists Guild of American Songwriters Salon Showcase, the Academy of American Poets College Prize, and the David Lloyd Krieger Prize in Sculpture. Wow. She holds an MFA from Stony Brook University and an MA from the George Washington University, and currently teaches for creative writing and literature, the program of writing and rhetoric, and the Honors College at Stony Brook University. Thank you. You're so busy and so talented. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks so much. And I just want to echo the gratitude so eloquently expressed by the other artists here. I'm going to read the Reader's Digest version of my story that's in Arriving at a Shoreline. It's called Morning Hoary, so morning with a U. At 11 a.m., it was a little early for a drink, but I'm so rarely entertained by my lover's widow. I eased onto a wee bar stool at the end of her extensive marble-topped island. Absolutely, I said. Honestly, I just wanted to grab Wilson's gear and get out. I was there for the bass and the amp. I scrutinized her pour, you know, in case she tried to poison me. She banished her gorgeous brawny dogs and motioned me into a sitting room of ergonomically bent wood and clouds of flicati. We sat. Did he tell you how I fucked the organizer lady? He had not. We'd seen each other a couple times since college. He attended St. John's, the great book school in Annapolis, with their formal casino nights and white-clad croquet matches. It was the sort of institution to which I neither had the desire nor the credentials to aspire, so busy was I dropping acid and singing in a shoegaze band. I went to GW and majored in fine art. We met at a graduation party my housemates threw, where he and Tom Thibodeau arrived in a pack of boys. Thibodeau, an old high school friend, was kind enough to bring boys in packs with some frequency. We'd had an intense little affair, which I'd ended for reasons that seemed idiotic now. and I'd reconnected with him via social media after my divorce and his separation. He was into this secrecy thing, which I guess is why I never earned the honorific girlfriend. But I was the last person he knew to see him alive, so I ended up fielding many calls from strangers with questions. The day after he left my house, following an idyllic week of sex, snacking, and seaside strolls, Bill Wilson shot himself dead with a vintage pistol I didn't know he had. I'd understood that he wanted to get back together with his wife, but being the less attractive option to death was profoundly unflattering. I spent the following week malfunctioning, looking for my socks in the pantry, unable to think of the word spatula, eating little more than my fingernails, and forming the black sock he left behind into a heart shape on his pillow, which I then photographed from several angles. When I saw the Maryland number come up on my phone, I assumed it was another stranger with questions, but it was her, Kristen, the wife, ex-wife, future ex-wife, widow. The ink wasn't dry yet, so I was hazy on the proper descriptor. Hi. I was scared of her. Why was I so scared of her? Hi. She asked how the week with him had been. She asked how long we'd been seeing each other. I told her I was in love with him. I told her everything she wanted to know. He slept great. We ate like royalty. All the appetites were there. I wondered if she knew what I meant, that we'd fucked like beasts the whole time. He seemed happy, I said. I drove to Maryland for the funeral. The building loomed, emblazoned with the words, Wilshire Funeral Home in screaming golden all caps. I hung onto the sleeve of Thibodeau's sports coat like a baby animal. The room seemed cramped for such a large building, compartmental. We were herded into a chamber to the right, and there was Bill's casket on a wood riser on the far wall, like where they put the stage in a theater. It seemed really small to me. How could the totality of Bill Wilson be in that little box? I mean, he was at least 6 feet tall. I had to wonder if the box seemed small because he'd left a good portion of his head on the bedroom wall, and then I had to make myself stop wondering. Kristen stood in the center aisle greeting everyone, and she stretched her arms in invitation when our eyes met. We hugged a little too long. I was surprised to see that she wasn't as relentlessly perfect as she looked online. She was crinklier, sandier, but still marathon fit in a smart green dress. I became freshly aware of my half-inch roots and brief hemline. I thought you guys were done, I said, not quietly enough for the crowded room. We were done, she smiled. We hugged again. We were done. She released me. You have to come to the house. We will celebrate him. She gripped my hand. We will celebrate him. There were 2 TV screens flanking the box and flashing photos. His college days, that trip to Panama they all took, Bill in a white linen suit smiling on his wedding day. I thought of the obituary, loving father and devoted husband, and I knew right then he would never have worn a white linen suit for me. Sitting there in an old black dress with a run in my hose, crying my eyeliner off in the 4th pew, the embodiment of a dirty little secret. I was never his future. I was his teddy bear. After the service, Thibodeau drove me to Kristen's house. It loomed too, but inside it was spectacular. The living room was huge and full with waiters circling around, a catered buffet, and a bartender cranking out truly tasty Bloody Marys. I drank too much and talked too loud to people I probably shouldn't have. I told our college friends we'd been fucking again. I told Bill's affable small town cousin that Bill had been with me all week, and the cousin was surprised. I told his former Post colleagues how we were going to watch Star Trek over the phone later that night, how we had plans. Those Bloody Marys were phenomenal. That snotty Jen girl refused to make eye contact. I don't have to deal with the second widow, she told someone later. The next night, Kristen and I met for dinner at a shishi cafe in Bethesda. We'd had some brief friendly exchanges and I was feeling relaxed, even glad to see her. Our repartee was easy and fun. We ordered cocktails. To Bill's taste in women, I offered. We clinked glasses. I don't even know what to call you, she said. Bill's girlfriend? I call you my lover's widow, I said, proud of myself. I like that, she said. We ate and quipped. Kristen was pissed, and I too had recently gotten in touch with my anger. We ordered another cocktail and vented. Kristen went off, and I tried to concur in vengeful support. I shouldn't tell you this. I think it's so funny that you might hate me, she said. I couldn't hate you. We understand each other. She leaned in conspiratorially. Well, at first they were really pushing for an open casket. I mean, how are you going to pull that off? She put a hand across her cheek and forehead to demonstrate the missing parts of his face and fixed hers into a beatific smile. I laughed. The coffin seemed really small, I said. She continued, they asked me for a suit, you know, to bury him in. I thought of the linen suit. I wondered if he'd still fit it. He'd put on a few pounds. Bill knew I had a dark sense of humor. He liked it. So I got my friend Lucy over and we dug through my drawers until we found the tiniest, laciest, most uncomfortable little red thing I'd ever bought to please him. I gave it to them like, here. And they were like, ma'am, we can put this in a casket with him, but usually, and I was like, no. She put on the straight face, the widow face. This is what he wanted to be buried in. So they did. I laughed, she laughed, and I tried my best to join her. I mean, provided she hadn't actually had him taken out or anything, which I was pretty sure by now she hadn't. I couldn't be too indignant. I tried to summon up approval enough to satisfy her. Here we were, having a giggle, half his face gone, his body a little softer and seeping over the binds of that skimpy, girly bit of floss. Did the part of his head that was left show his receding hairline? She was so open, so cordial about making his corpse ridiculous. She looked at me with clear, bright eyes that seemed to express a new understanding between us. I have his bass and amp, she said. Do you want it? I did.
What a great ending. I love that ending. And I love the way you said it too. All right. That's such a charming little story. I love that. Thank you so much, Sarah. All right. Our next reader is we're going to try Roger again. Roger, can you try unmuting? Let's see. How's that working? Oh boy, I've tried everything. No, it's not working. All right, anybody got magical powers out there or know something?
Does somebody maybe hear a little something? If it, are levels really low down? I'm not a techie, but
Yeah.
Have you checked your mic level?
It's up. It's as hard as it goes. Yeah. Yeah.
Your mic level on either your computer or Zoom, because you have to do both.
It happened to me once and somebody told me something and I can't remember it.
All right, no worries.
I'm so sorry, Roger. Yeah.
Can you dance your poems? No.
What, Thomas, was that suggestion?
Can he dance his poems? Like just.
Oh, can you dance them? No. But when we figure out what the October date is, maybe we can put you on the October date with Lindsay. And you could read again. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I know. Yeah, like I can hear you, right? Yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay. Our next poet then is going to be Lil DeThomas. Lil is a gender fluid poet, writer, artist, and musician from Denver, Colorado. They're interested in self-revision and the power that art has to enact shadow work. They enjoy writing at home on the floor next to their cat, October. When I read that, I kept thinking, if October got together with Dennis's pet rock, Gibraltar, that would be kind of an interesting little meeting, wouldn't it? That would kind of cute up. meet up. All right, so that's my thoughts. Okay, welcome, Lil.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Awesome. I'm Lil. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I just wanted to say thank you to Jane, Mary, Lindsay, and Peter, and anyone else I missed. Thank you so much for putting together this beautiful anthology, and thank you for giving me the chance to be a part of it. So the first poem I'm going to read is from the anthology, and it's called Salad Days. It's on page 135 if anyone's interested in reading along. Our family friend ran over a suicidal boy who laid down in the road hoping to die, then sequestered himself in his home for days. Finally, upon deciding to go out, the dead boy's family happened to be having a vigil. As he drove by, timing just right there, an army of votives. We used to house a family of birds. They would make nests on the porch. The babies would always fall out. They looked like pink jelly beans. I once tried to save one that had fallen with Tupperware, but the dog ate it. My mother said she was dieting. As I laid on her bosom pillow, I asked her what a diet was. She said, less marshmallowy. I loved the cushy lady, so soft, until she broke down in a dressing room because she was so exhausted of every day going to war with herself. And then the second poem I'm going to read is a poem that got published this year in an anthology from New Writing Scotland 40 called Nobody Remembers the Birdman. And this poem is called The Greedy Algorithm. Red brake lights and I'm choking on my seatbelt on family reunion headed to Santa Anita racetrack. My cousin looks prophetic, though no one notices there's a clot on the freeway, sea of cars scabbing up. Of course, my family romanticizes the gambling part. My cousin belongs in the hot sand and can't sit still. The son got stabbed and bled through the windshield. Then we all got out to see horses running for their lives. I see him walking to the concessions. He looks like Jesus, like 40 days in the desert. He looks like he could confess, but I know he won't. He looks at me analytically, like he looks under the hood of his car, investigating something. People walk the perimeter of the fence and they wish themselves jockeys, going faster than the LA freeway, where lane jumpers weave through the car mob. The greedy algorithm pushes them further behind, explains my cousin, the prophet. The cars that stay in their lane move faster. Maybe you should have driven, I think. But he orders a slushie instead. When he drives, he palms the stick shift hard, sucks the gasoline dry. Gets what he wants by divine right, maybe. When we leave the racetrack, we don't leave him behind like I hope we will. There is hardly any room in the back. My legs curl up like a snake as he gets comfortable. I am nearly kneeling before him, kneeling before an atheist that begs for forgiveness. And then the last piece I'm going to share today was published this year in a collection called 86 Logic. And this one is called Blinds. Every time I'm reminded, I see you in the vagrants by the railroad, through the holes in rural traffic signs. I see you between boxcars on the train that left its mark on your arms, still see the tracks I climbed to hang my disbelief. Swinging from truth to truth, I still see the bed of nails you made for me. Your fingers looked like bullets when you held me at gunpoint to tuck me in, and sometimes I still wake up to wash the rust off your hands. I drive the same stretch because there's no other way around your house. No navigation away from the bruises I kept quiet. No way around the graveyard where you buried me next to the other women without tombstones. It's hard to make a salt circle around a city where highways meet beaten paths, where your collapsed veins intersect with filtered sunlight slipping through the blinds. At home, I'm still stuck at a railroad crossing, littered with pieces of your road to recovery. The walls rattle the photos of time past, and the guardrails lower in front of me, lower me to my bed where I waited out. Hushed skin sizzling in the morning sunbeams, smelling of lust and meat and not me, where I hide under sheets to smother the crackling of me, to fight back the smell of exhumed dread every time I'm reminded that the train will eventually pass. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you. If you go into the chat, you see a lot of people are having a hard time finding words to express. It's really powerful words. Roger, we heard you. Hello.
Yes, James Mikes. Did that work?
What
Yes.
did you do? Yes, whatever you did, it worked.
Well, it worked.
But can I read your bio?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd love to. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. If I can, yeah. Roger Aplon, and did I pronounce your name okay?
That's fine.
Okay, good. Is the author of many poetry, prose poetry, and short fiction books, most recently The Omnipotent Sorcerer, Unsolicited Press, 2021. He divides his time between San Diego and Beacon, New York, where he edits and publishes the poetry magazine, Waymark, Voices of the Valley. And we are really happy to hear you, Roger. Thank you.
Thanks. As long as I don't know if the voice level is high enough. Is that reader? Okay, let's do it. The piece from the anthology, which is a gorgeous anthology. Thank you for including my work. Improvisation 1. Let's begin again. Yes, that's right. After the first comes what's left, or is it backward? And only the last is first. And who cares which direction you insist they follow? There's really no freedom from what holds you up or back or even steady. You are, after all, driven by fire in the belly that belies your hidden truth, anxious or even afraid of that mood that slices through everything you treasure. Or is it my imagination that worries you, she asks. And he replies, I'd like it better if there were no one to question, no one to claim right or wrong. And theirs is a random encounter that insists on reciprocation and privacy. And now's their chance to ride into the night free and easy. And who doesn't want the same? We deserve better. Even those, allow me my judgment, brother, who are seemingly content with illusion and fracture, lies and truths that are supposedly what? Interchangeable? In fact, the entire cabal of misguided visions that depend on luck and the insignificant of something or someone, as spirited as an iguana nibbling her tender leaves, or a lone rhinoceros drifting across a verdant patch with only the hope of discovery. Yes, theirs is the formula for terror, dread, and the rest of those often deadly sins. Spare me, spare us all. Throughout and beyond, it's hand in hand that counts. Walk with him and walk with her. No more pretending. Accept the opportunity to dream and carry on and on and on. And I'll read another piece from this same sequence. She steps from her bath, all bubbles and shimmering skin. There's a smile and a twinkle in her eye, the way it might have been at the beginning, but has been sidelined these many years. What's brought it back today, at these moments? Don't ask. Mysteries are best left unsolved, or better yet, set aside in favor of improvisations. For every action, there's a backstory. It might begin with a question, an assumption, or a lie, whatever. She might have arrived from Prague a month ago. It may have been during the occupation or the uprising. She may have come from Bangladesh with her family's history of education or mayhem. She's lost in the winter of insanity. She was born in this house. She's only here to make a point. All is true and none is true. The next we see is her backing her Mustang down the driveway and onto the boulevard. Do we know where she's headed? Whether she'll meet someone? Is it work or an errand? Do we care? Does she? Is it all always beginning, middle, or end? Wouldn't it be just as engaging if it were then and later and now and before and what of you? Have you a backstory you'd rather not share, or are you willing? Would you begin with now or then? Do you know what you will not tell? What do you think you will? Do you trust yourself? Is truth more rewarded than its opposite? Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. That was really well worth the wait. I'm so happy that everything turned out. I don't know how happy we are. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Our next poet is Yvonne. Yvonne was the first poetry editor at feminist journals Azzara and Ms. She has received many poetry and fiction awards, including 2 NEAs, a Brio, a Leeway, and a Pushcart Prize. Recent print publications are Furty, Yellow Arrow Journal, Sand, Peregrine, Stronger Than Fear, Caveman Press, Rushing Through the Dark, Shoya Press, and I apologize to the press, From the Farther Shore, Vast River Press, and Black in the Middle, an anthology of the Black Midwest Belt Publishing. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for including this rather senior here in this very exciting new anthology. And yes, I do recommend anybody who's going to be visiting you at Facebook to, give it a taste. I'm going to read 2 poems. One from a collection of memoir poems that I am writing, and because it's a memoir poem, everything that's in the poem happened, and this is the one that is in Arriving at Shoreline. It deals with 2 encounters, one that happened 50 years ago, but it was so vivid that I still remember it, but didn't write it down until the pandemic. So it's a sonnet, and it's called Another Rendezvous, and you can find it on page 51 if you want to follow along. Another rendezvous. A knife at my throat. On foot before I plucked my child from the sitters. Lucky her cash pay in hand. No fumbling for the check tucked in my bra. Cool Hulk. Pay ball, no slash. my high school graduation watch in his clutch. That sweet Elgin cost. Daddy shoveled trash. My stuck gold band, addiction's easy touch. A better than that, bro? Gone in a flash. I remember crossing a 12-year rift, sharing this old near miscut throat. What can a daughter's father do? Tone deaf, adrift, he gave me a penknife, like man to man. What can we do? In the meantime, some swift, some halt, to lift, then bury, clan to clan. And the second poem I'm going to read, thank you very much. I love this ballet of hands that we're doing. It's also autobiographical, but not a memoir. And I wrote it, yes, it's about 50 years old itself, the poem. And I wrote it, and I remember it because it was the first poem for which I was paid. So you could say it was my first start at poetry making. I'm gonna put my glasses on for this because print's a little small and I gotta do this now. It had a different title. I think the original title was Harlem 1972. But in the collection, I call it Work Study. This place is prose, blood, knife, documentary, prose. This place is not a womb for blues signifying karma, swoon-eyed spirituals. This place is made of love, made desperate and spittle, death in a corner of rags, life cornered and dragged. This place is prose. This place is prose, white jacket, clinical, prose. This place is not a home for clean Samaritan scholars. This place is a ward for the incurably poor, a trunk-stuffed nightmare, an inside-out pocket, dreams pilfered on credit. This place is prose. Where God is an absentee landlord, his devils never go begging. From the halls of jurisprudence, they have sleep by the pulpit's bed, and spleen on any prayer or vow, we suck like flies from our lives. This place is prose. This place is not a school for life to be tested and crowned. Impotence sets the time clock. Who comes late? A late and prodigal poet. Thank you.
You left us wanting more, Yvonne. That was really wonderful.
That's always good to do. They say
it's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Again, thank you very much for including me. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much. Our last writer, or our last speaker contributor today is Tobey Hiller. Tobey Hiller's award-winning poetry and prose appear in a wide variety of national and international journals and anthologies, including Fire and Rain, Eco Poetry of California, Scarlet Tanager Press, The Wild Marin Poetry Center 2019, and Transformation, Marin Poetry Center 2020. Her short fiction collection, Flight Advice, a Fabulary, was finalist for Omnidon's Fabulous Fiction Prize in 2019 and was published by Unlikely Books in 2021. Her story Splinter won first prize in Crafts 2020 short story contest. Tobey's most recent book of poetry is Crow Mine, Finishing Line Press 2020. Welcome, Tobey, our last reader today.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mary. And it's wonderful to be here. Thank you to the editors, Jane, Mary, and all the others, and to all the other readers. This is a fantastic reading. I've been enjoying it so much, and I feel lucky to be part of it. So thank you. Actually, I'm going to read two poems, and because I am both a poet and a prose writer, and I'll end with the piece from this. Absolutely, I agree. This cover is so stunning. I love it. Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is a prose poem called "As for the Worm." As for the worm, it inches. The orangutan, on the other hand, scratches, thinking of a joke involving a burlap bag, the people watching him, and his own head. But not only the snake slithers. The press conference will be at 10 a.m. Words fill the air like crows looking for the nearest edible morsel, or gnats seeking out the liquid refreshment of a deer's eyes. I mean, it's words. Is that nature? We're better than the other animals at it. Wolf, wolf, the story goes, and then stockpiled guns in the garage. In the slam pong blare of question and answer, you can hear a low, dangerous buzz, electric as the crackle of insects frying against a light bulb. Next is a silence in which water boils. It is a moment of urgency for the water, as the poet says. Love too commits cliff. War, nothing stops, only changes shape, velocity, or trajectory. From point to cluster, from liquid to ice, from possible to bomb, from perhaps to hope, requires air. These possibles fly everywhere, of all stripes and fancies, the long march toward the mountains you are dreaming of, or the place you never wanted to go has already begun. Maybe since we're a little over time, I'll just read the piece from
Can I, Tobey, please read your other poem too. And okay,
right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This one was published somewhere. Where was it published? It was published in the Marin Poetry Center anthology. It's called, for instance, The Layer of Heat. She believed in explanations. Much later, she told herself the unexpected was every day. For instance, the gliding motion of love becomes a grinding, shears something off. For instance, the layer of heat below the steady seeming ground surges up sudden, fires flesh, bucking red past Earth's backbone, causing new islands, archipelagos, green and windy, rock-ridden, and love's geology. Flames travel, hardens into nows, shine, and rough. For instance, sometimes she counts it simple, warmth's welcome when the night is cold or morning stillness chills. She tells herself the story of what was, with the jacket of later laid on, an iridescence friable as a dragonfly's wing. Time and weather carve the landscape. What rises next? I say the future's imperative, a braille of solids melting. Who can explain the everyday? Forgive flame, forgive what hardens, clasp it. Still, she hopes. Okay, so the piece in the anthology is a flash piece called Kitchen Incident. I'm working on I was really fascinated by what Richard wrote because I'm working on a collection of transformation tales. And actually my last book of stories, which is called Flight Advice, a Fabulary by Unlikely Books, has a lot of surreal and fabulous splinters in the stories. Kitchen Incident. She opened the oven door. One of the Cornish hens she was roasting flew out, brushing her arm with its seared flesh. She gasped, more of a squeak than a scream. Brown wing stubs pumping, thyme spiking out green where the head should be. It circled the kitchen, flew out the window and off into blue, rapidly dwindling to a speck more or less like a grease spot on a favorite blue blouse. She stared after it. 350 degrees, brown as a burned stick. Flying? She felt her mind stammer, or was that the kitchen? Damn it all, there must be something truly wrong with, and then she heard her mother's voice warning her years ago, keep that oven door closed, whenever she had opened it to peek at whatever was cooking in there. You'll wreck the meal. She looked down at her arms, where a slash of red proved something, maybe the cost of betrayal. Those little hens, their fat turned to sizzle, wings feathered only with crisp. Was she hearing a commotion in the oven? But now there would be only 3 hens in there and 4 people for dinner. That was a problem that she had to address immediately. Do something, said her mother's warning kitchen voice. But the reason why there were 3, not 4 rock Cornish hens seemed, for God's sake, like a story she couldn't tell her dinner guests. She stared at the oven door. Alec came into the kitchen, frowning. Did I hear something? Everything all right in here? Oh, fine, she said, fine, just going to baste the birds. She pointed to the window with her oven mitt. Could you please close the window? He slammed the window shut, muttering, what the hell, don't you have any wings of your own? Arms, I have arms, not wings, she said. She looked down at herself to make sure she was telling the truth. But she had spoken too loudly. He glared, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course you have arms. Too loud. Her ears were paper walls, not stone. There was a sizzle of cluck from the oven. She was sure of it, but how could there be cluck without beaks? She crossed her arms, thinking feathers. At night, the clanking of dreams silenced her hungers. In the mornings, she made breakfast. She made waffles of mercy and ate the silence greedily with the spoon of a desire whose name rhymed with tomorrow. But it wasn't morning. She looked down at her own hands. The oven mitts warned her. She yanked open the oven door. To hell with her mother. And one after another, they flew out. Little wing stubs flapping, the sprongs of green thyme like antennae above their brown shoulders, reaching for distance, reaching for blue. Alex staggered back. Open the window, she shouted. And to his credit, he did. And then turned in mesmerized half circles, first staring at her, then out the window. She herself walked out through the front door, untying her apron, spreading her fingers into air like petals, sailing smoothly through the staring silence, the round O's of all those mouths, the last sizzle of her own doubts. A distant yammer of her mother's voice faded fast, as the garbled sounds of wonder or sorrow, she didn't know which, came loud from behind her, where Alex stood in the kitchen doorway. When she got out under the trees, she lifted her arms, the feather weight of them. She reached easily up toward that other home, the blue. She paid no attention to the noisy silence behind her. She would join her own flock.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you. Thank you for ending the reading today with that, Tobey, the poems and the stories.
Well, thank you.
So much. And thanks again to everybody. I'm just going to give a quick little reminder about a few things about Great Weather for Media, and then we'll say goodbye. The anthology is, and thank you to all the readers who mentioned it. We love it. We are very proud of it. Is available for sale at greatweatherformedia.com, where you'll also find news about our poetry collections, like our most recent Receta by Mario Jose Pagan Morales, and upcoming events and info on how to receive our monthly newsletter. More reliable than my memory. Remember, submission season begins again on October 15th and ends on January 15th, 2023. As always, please wait a year if you've been accepted. Is that right? 1 year, right? Send us your unpredictable, fearless, bright, dark, and you're innovative. And you've heard a lot of that today. Thanks again for everyone who's listening, who's been watching and listening. Thanks again for joining today. And especially thanks for the contributors. The chat has been an amazing conversation. I've been like going back and forth, looking at your comments to each other. And you've kind of created a community here today, which I really think is cool. We will see you next time. And I wish you all well in your writing and all good health. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.